science teachers. How are you all doing today? I wanted to make a hopefully quick video that doesn't go through all the nooks and crannies of the curriculum map and all the new scope and sequence stuff. But I just want to highlight all the updates that I've made over the summer. So that way you have all the tools that you need to be successful in your planning and teaching this year. So I'm going to go ahead and open up my share screen and get this out of the way. So this page that I'm on is one of the places you can find the curriculum. You can go through the teacher's lounge. I know a lot of you use that. This is the CIPD hub where I've also created a page that has everything. I'll put the link to this page in the description, and I'll show you where you can find it on the curriculum map as well. I try to put some updates and things from around the district or new videos I've created here as well. But down at the bottom, you'll find the curriculum maps for all of your grades, as well as the training video playlist. That's where this video will be housed. It's on YouTube, and I'll also show you another spot where you'll be able to find that as well. But for 7th grade teachers, you're just going to click on that, and it'll take you right to your scope and sequence. And right off the bat, you should see one of the main updates that I've made for this year is added a bit of color. Hopefully this helps. One, it's a bit more appealing to visualize, but also this color actually coordinates in with the curriculum maps. So all quarter one, you'll have a green kind of color theme. Quarter two, you have an orange, blue, yellow. Hopefully that creates sort of a distinction as you transition from one unit to the next. There's a different feel for it. It's like, okay, I've moved on. But other than that, it's just cosmetic. Most of the other stuff here on the scope and sequence is the same. I have updated the performance tasks. These have always been there. This is what they were. This is what I'm updating them to. It's the same ones. I've just made it a little bit better. I'll come back and show you guys these once we're in the curriculum map and you see them there. But this will be very useful for both map prep for students, getting them ready for that sort of style of testing, as well as good assessments. So I'll show you those in a little bit. There's also where you'll find the quarter assessments. They're highlighted right now because I need to go through and just update and make sure that I've put in better questions, gotten rid of any bad ones, but those will be there as a PDF so you know what I'm testing the students on, and then we test them on Elluminate. If you didn't know, this is a new update this year, but this is my one-pager scope and sequence, so it fits on one page if you print it out, but the fonts are kind of small to get that accomplished. So if you'd rather have a larger version, just double-click that top picture, and there is a front and back version where the fonts are a little bit bigger, much easier to see. So if you have things that you like printed out for planning purposes, you have that available to you. Real quick, before you jump into the first curriculum map to show the major updates, I view the scope and sequence as a overall planning. So maybe planning for your unit. What am I talking about? How can I tie these ideas together? Or just looking at my whole year, like what's coming up? What do we have going on? How can I tie in my conversations in this unit to ones in the past or coming up? Those sorts of things. Your weekly or daily planning is going to happen in your curriculum maps. So that's where we'll jump to, and that's where most of the updates have been placed. As we come in, we'll start on the curriculum landing page. Not too many updates on this page by itself. I did put up at the top a quick link that will get you to the YouTube playlist with all of my curriculum training videos. From there, you can get to any video on my page. But if you are new and you need a video over Discovery Ed, that has a video in there that can help out. Or I have a video on how I put it all together to create lessons. I believe those are in there as well. So if you want some more, they'll be slightly out of date with what I'm showing on screen, but the content should still be good there. Otherwise, most of the stuff on page one was cosmetic updates. I did make sure that all these links work. And that page that you saw me on at the beginning, if you want to get there, this is that link to get to that site. And I'll keep that page updated, as well as the one on the Teachers Lounge, multiple ways for you guys to access the curriculum. Before we move down into the actual scope and pacing guide, the suggested pacing guide, the way I envision the best way to introduce a unit, this planning page helps you plan out your whole unit. And the best way to start is by using the anchoring phenomena that they have. The and if you want to understand what they're talking about for this runner, you'll see the picture either online if you get on there, or I have the picture as well on the unit poster. The idea is you want to introduce this idea to students at the beginning, which I believe this one is a runner has a prosthesis leg. What are the materials that you should be using on that? Because you want it to be lightweight, you want it to be strong, you want it to be aerodynamic, malleable. There's all these things that go into it. Price, how expensive is it? That go into how do you determine all these variables and the different materials? Because as students go through the different concepts in this unit, they're going to learn about matter, different types of matter, how different matters formed and compounds and those sorts of things. So by the end, they'll have a better understanding of how steel is made, how iron is an element versus steel is a compound. What's the benefit there? Plastics, those sorts of things. And so they'll be able to incorporate those ideas to come back to this phenomena to answer a question. So the unit project poster, which I believe I delivered out to all schools. If you're new in a building, hopefully they left the posters there. They're laminated. The idea behind those is to put those up by the door. So as the students coming in throughout the entire unit, they're remembering, that's right, we learned about this prosthesis leg and how there's different components and compounds. And as they learn about all this stuff, they're reminded this is why we're learning it. We're going to come back and answer this question at the end. That's the idea there behind the project posters to help bring that all back. And then there's also unit projects that tie into all of that. So use that planning to help you out. If you're not a professional or this area isn't your specialty, there are teacher background knowledge links here that should help you kind of get caught up to speed with what the topics are all about. And we're going to talk about this in a little bit, so I'll just leave that there. I do have some example lesson plans. One, how would you do a lesson in the first week based off of using my stuff, as well as the 3 Ls. If you weren't here, that was training we did last year on some literacy strategies. And so there's also a link there for that if you want some example lesson plans. I'll kind of, when we come down just below, I'll highlight this is how I've used Discovery Ed and my resources to plan a lesson that really fits my style. So you get an idea of maybe a good method that you can go about doing that. Okay, as we move down into the scope and sequence, this is where you'll find the majority of updates that I think will be found useful. The first one that I think you'll like is the student learning objectives are now numbered. So there are 8 learning objectives, and those correlate once you come down to the actual activities. Is I've highlighted these objectives are what's covered in these activities. This objective is what's covered in these activities. So there's a quick planning guide for if I'm in these activities, objective 4, I can come up, yeah, that's what we're doing in those lessons. Hopefully those are pretty accurate. I had to read them and assess it myself. So if there's any changes that need to be made, just let me know. That should help you quickly find objectives that are tied to what you're doing in your planning. So that's one update. Let's just do the updates down here going left to right. This was added in the middle of last year, so I don't know if everybody saw it, but there are additional video resources that tie into whatever's being talked about or taught that week. These are links straight to YouTube. The idea isn't necessarily that I'm going to sit here and just play the videos and no longer teach, but you could play a short segment of it because it shows a good representation of what the students need to learn. It has a great explanation. You could put it in an Edpuzzle, so that way it pauses, asks questions. If you assign students homework, and you can also tag a video, one of these videos on there, in case they have a question, they can go watch the video. Oh, that's right, we learned about XYZ, and now they're better able to complete their work. However you want to integrate those videos, I've just made it easier for you. You don't have to go searching for video resources. Most of these come from channels that I know are high quality, have high views. There's good stuff there. So use those, hopefully to make your lesson planning a bit more creative. Then we get to the virtual and hands-on activities. I've added in these little icons. If you see a lab that has the test tube icon, that means, hey, this requires some materials for you to prepare. And if you have the computer icon, that means this is a virtual lab. So as you come down, anything that has an activity number, that's the lab that ties in with the Discovery Ed stuff. If you click on the main link, that takes you to Discovery Ed, to that activity. You can quickly see the materials needed. You can quickly see the teacher's guide. All that information is right there. And actually, if you click on the icon that says, hey, this requires materials, if you click on that, that's actually a direct link to my video where I show you the materials. Here's how you would do it. Sometimes I make suggestions for, hey, as you use this, I would just recommend a different resource. So I walk through for you as a teacher. Here's how you want to do this lab. Even make suggestions. Sometimes labs are good as a lab, but sometimes it's like, I just want this to be a demo and have a student come up and help me. So you can be a bit more creative than thinking that these all have to be a full-on lab. Some of them make good demonstrations to introduce a lesson. So here's an example. Once you get down to Gizmos and PhET, those will always be digitally based. And if you need training videos on those, I have those on my YouTube channel. Those aren't going to have videos with them because they, once you know how to use one gizmo, it all makes sense. But sometimes the activities that they have are digital. I bet I can find one shortly. Here's one. I do have videos highlighting those, and I kind of go through the Discovery Ed virtual lab. I show you guys how that works. All right. So those are the labs and activities. Hopefully that one looks better with the little icons hiding the links. But also now you have gizmos and PhETs blended in. You don't have to go searching for the right lab. They're already there. So hopefully that will be an improvement. My next two updates, really excited about. Discovery Ed, once you got to the Explore tab, they had this in their resources, was the main idea graphic organizer. And I had these linked before. The downside to it was they were pretty boring, and it was the same form for every single grade, and unit concept is the same one all throughout. It's a good idea because it's, hey, what's the main question that we're trying to answer? Have students collect evidence to support an answer and give their reasoning as well. So it's kind of collecting their ideas as you go throughout each of these, they're learning. So it's a good idea because at the end, you want students to come back to the main idea and the explain question, and they have to answer that. And if they have all their notes there, then they can incorporate that into their writing. So it's a good support for a better, more thorough writing process. It was just kind of boring and teachers didn't use it, and I don't blame them. So what I've done is I've gone through and I've created now, each unit will have its unique graphic organizer where you can have your main idea or question or whatever it is, collect your evidence. I've also provided space on the back of each of these for additional notes or kind of a way to give a rough draft writing, whatever it is. But this will be a good way for students to collect a bit more of their information as they're learning, as a graphic organizer and a notebook, whatever you choose to use it as. And then they have all that written down for when at the end, now they have to write, they can look at their notes and they'll have a much better written response. Now, maybe you like that idea, but you would tweak the design a little bit, totally fine. At the bottom of this little paragraph is a link to the original Canva design. And if you just make a copy, then you have your own copy, you can make edits or anything like that. So I'm excited to see how you guys use this to help the students better write responses and keep their thoughts from the beginning to end throughout each concept. As I said, each unit has one template. So this one will be the same in down here in this concept. They're all the same, unless you go through and make any of your own designs. But once you go to unit 2, there's another template, and that's themed for that topic. So I made them look like whatever topic they're learning about. So hopefully that's kind of cool and excited to see what that does. Before I get to my final update, which is down here, the best way that I find using Discovery Ed is not to go through activity 4, now we do activity 5, and now I do activity 6, and do it that way. What I like to do is when I'm planning out my lessons is to look at a not that many, but look at a block of activities, and kind of look at that and think, okay, what's there? I know I have a hands-on lab. I have maybe some videos, maybe there's some text, so some data. What's going on here? How can I create a lesson out of this? If one of the activities is a video, maybe I don't put the kids on their laptops to watch the video. I'm just going to play that up here. Maybe I incorporate some pause points for discussions, or we could do stations. I can have a computer set up with that video, and that's a station where students watch that, answer questions. And the hands-on activity, instead of it a whole class, that's one station. So maybe I do a station. Or I build these all into my own worksheet, and the students work on that after a lesson that I give. There's all sorts of unique ways, and it should tie into your teaching style. Sometimes it makes sense to assign these online. Sometimes it makes sense to just, hey, here's this activity in the book. Let's answer the questions there. But sometimes it doesn't. And so looking at it as a block of activities, build that into a lesson that makes sense for you, incorporating gizmos, FETs, videos, and then boom, you have yourself your unique lesson pulling from the resources of Discovery Ed. But we're not necessarily just going to hit all in a row and just, all right, turn the page, next. You can do that if there's a benefit to it, but just that's how I plan my lessons, to make sure that I'm building with stuff with my personality that fits into it. So that's how I would envision using this to create unique and engaging lessons. And then when you come down to the end, you have the evaluate. How do we make sure that students learn what we taught them? Now, they've always had the concept assessment and the practice assessment. The downside of the concept assessment was you probably didn't cover every single thing in Discovery Ed. You probably pick and chose different things. And so assigning this was a bit unfair because there was questions in there that was like, oh, we didn't really talk about that one. Well, coming this August, I can't show it yet, but they told us they're taking their assessment builder Discovery Ed has and integrating it in with the concept assessment. So when you open this up, you should be able to go and choose the questions you want, get rid of any questions you didn't cover, and now you have an assessment that actually ties to what you taught. So that will hopefully be a good way to get some quick, easy tests that then you can get your data digitally, upload your grades. So hopefully that's a really neat process. We'll see what that looks like when it comes out. I actually looked through these to pull all the questions for the quarter assessments. So it's good to be using these because then students are naturally going to see the questions that they will be tested on from the district. And anytime that you assign something with this, students have the opportunity afterwards for some questions. If they got it wrong, it'll take them to a lesson or a video or show some graphic that helps them understand why they were wrong. So those can be very useful. And then finally, the performance assessment. They have at least one of these at each concept. Some of them have more. And then I'll show you at the bottom, there's also a unit performance assessment as well. It's the same thing. It just covers the topics of all the concepts. These used to be in Discovery Ed, but the way that they were formatted, it was hard for a teacher to see the question and what the possible responses were. Some of the answers that they had were wrong, but the idea of it was really good. So I've pulled those out onto Google Docs, made some corrections, enhanced it, because the idea behind these is I've learned all this content. Can I take that knowledge and understanding and apply it to a new scenario that's related? And so there'll be text, there'll be videos. I have this set up so that if you're doing it digitally, you can just click on the link, there's your video. Or if you're doing it paper pencil, they can scan that QR code with their phone or laptop and watch the video. There's text and then there's questions. And so I just pulled these right off. They have multiple select questions. They're given access to data that they now have to create a chart. There are drop downs. This one doesn't have it, but a lot of these have written responses, which is a huge component to the MAP test. So we want students building these sort of practices throughout their middle school year. So by 8th grade, they're very used to the writing process because that's a whole chunk of the MAP test that we score very poorly on. And so these performance assessments, which are now on Google Docs, will hopefully help students be better prepared. And then also with you as a teacher, maybe you don't want to assign all of this, or maybe not all at once. Maybe you want to tweak a question. You're like, I don't need this many responses. Let's get rid of some. Whatever it is that you want to make adjustments to, it's a Google Doc now. So you go to File, make a copy, and then you can tweak your own version for whatever you and your students want to do. And then there you go. So hopefully this version will give you teachers a more flexible usage, being able to give students higher quality assessments that incorporates a lot more practice into them. So there's at least one of those for each concept, but then at the end, after they've finished all their units, it reminds you, hey, don't forget about the unit project, or going back to that introductory phenomenon. How can students now better answer that with all the stuff that they've learned? So that's tying the whole unit together. And then they have a unit performance assessment. It's the same exact format and it's nothing different. It's just going to cover the different topics that they learn. And so you see, here's an example of a tech enhanced question. That's another big component of, so they can do drag and drops, or if you're doing it on paper pencil, they can write it out. Tech enhanced questions is big on the map, as well as writing. So there's a lot of writing to explain different things, videos, word banks. So you see how this kind of more mimics a map test, and the fact that there's text, images, data, manipulatives, all those sorts of things. So feel free to use that however you want for your students. And then you finish up the unit and you're ready to go to quarter two. You can just jump to the quarter two curriculum map or go back to the scope and sequence. This was just a little fun way to get to the next unit. Okay, I don't want these videos to carry on for too long, and I covered all the updates. If you need more training videos, click those links I talked about earlier. That gets you all my curriculum training videos, and they're all delineated by different topics, so you can dive into whatever you need, or reach out to me personally. Be happy to come in and meet with you, your team, do some modeling lessons or lesson planning together, whatever it is you need. I'm excited for this year, and I will look forward to seeing you guys in the next video. Bye.